AI Realized, the podcast about everything that is new, now, and next for enterprise executives deploying AI. Hosted by myself, Christina Elwood, and my collaborator, David Yakubovich.
Our guests will share what's driving AI adoption, use cases, and business models for the data and AI economy.
Where the future is bright.
Welcome to AI Realized, the podcast for enterprise executives leading AI deployments. From tackling security, data, and operational challenges to navigating organizational transformation, AI deployment offers a unique opportunity to redesign organizations from the inside out. I'm Christina Elwood, your host for today's episode, and we're talking today with Ashish Bhatia, AI product manager who was most recently with Microsoft and will soon be joining Amazon. Ashish, welcome to AI Realized.
Thank you so much, Christina. Pleasure to be here. I've been a listener, and it's great to be on the podcast today.
We are really excited to have you. I recently listened to another interview that you gave, so I know that you've got some thinking to share with the executives in our audience about the shift from automation to agentification. What does that mean in real enterprise terms, and how close are we to truly autonomous agents?
One of the things that I feel the industry is grappling right now is transforming a lot of their automation workloads to agentic workloads. A lot of those are yesteryear's automation rewritten in the new agentic frameworks, if you will. But for them to be truly agentic, I generally try to underscore a few things. You need to have reasoning deeply built into it so that we're offloading the cognitive overload of building those automation from human and offloading that to AI as much as possible. That would make it truly agentic. What it does is when we were building these automation ourselves, we were literally baking in those rules into those automation systems and then let them run forever. But we know that there are always these corner cases that we might have not tackled, and that's the reason why we go back and fix those automations. But for a new age automation, which is agentic in nature, those kind of corner cases hopefully will get tackled by the agentic reasoning capability, which is most promising for me. And that's why I feel that is the key piece which is missing. And once that starts to land, we will see some of this in a more graceful way, all these corner cases, outlier scenarios, and things like that. In long term, one of the other things that would come into play is memory context retainment, so that again, these things don't suffer from kind of session amnesia as much and have long form context and long context of what's going on. And that context can be leveraged for that decision making, that corner case, just like a human would do in a real life situation.
It seems like the context setting is the tricky bit in setting up the agents, and having the agents being responsible for all of the reasoning with no human in the loop is maybe a little premature, especially given that the models are willing to refuse to make changes and things like that. Where do you think, guide, if you will, the audience on how they should think about the way to use agentic today, like how much is human in the loop today, given the limitations on guardrails and security and things like that? What's the kind of middle ground where there's been some improvement or change in the risk profile for agents? And then when are we really able to go fully agentic?
There are, I would say, 3 horizon things if we look at it. We started off with humans collaborating with these AI agents. We call that at Microsoft phase 1 assistance, right? Where humans are working with some sort or whatnot, right? And then really getting augmented responses for whatever they're trying to get done. Phase 2 thinking is where you're able to offload some cognitive work to an agent. Deep research is always a good example that I use for researching, code gen, for now code writing and things like that. Those are good examples of cognitive work that you can offload. in that case, you're still the orchestrator. That is kind of phase two way of thinking about it, that humans are the orchestrator and they're breaking apart a large cognitive task into multiple pieces and then offloading to the right agent. That is very much feasible today in a lot of companies. Cursors of the world, Replit of the world for code, and then deep research and other kind of deep thinking from Google. They are offloading a lot of the research work to these agents. The phase three way of kind of thinking about this is that from this orchestrator of agents, you invite agents to your team in collaboration work, right? Where you almost are using these agents as a coworker, right? So we're moving away from thinking about these things as tools to co-workers, employees, digital employees of the world, right? And from an orchestrator of tools, you then go to a place which is hybrid workforce, right? Where humans are working with digital employees to get tasks done. These folks are able, or these tools are able to do end-to-end work themselves, and they are able to use their own then sub tools to get stuff done as well. Again, there is sparks of it already today, right? If you look at some of the reasoning, even the announcement that happened today, the announcement that newer models are able to use tools in their reasoning workflow itself versus having to reason and then call a tool, right? Within the reasoning workflows, they're able to leverage tools, call tools, and get stuff done, and then come back with an opinion, which is different from past, right? Where it will reason about something and then call a tool and then wait for that tool to come back and then offer that response back to you. It can now call multiple tool within its reasoning kind of workflow or chain of thought, if you will.
That's a great description of the capabilities at the different levels. I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about what you think the technological breakthroughs need to be in order to make it safe for people to fully automate or use fully autonomous agents. And how do we deal with things like stubbornness in an LLM when in an agentic world?
Yeah, that is a challenging problem. And the way we could humanize it to an extent is think about it this way. You get a new employee. Again, for different levels, we can think of them differently. If you get an intern, how do you treat them or work with them, or how do you grow them within the organization versus you get a professional with 5 years of experience that know what they're doing and stuff like that. How do you groom them and onboard them within the organization? So think about it similarly, that as we are bringing these tools on board in a team setting or whatnot, how do we understand consistency of decision making, consistency of outcomes, and then start to build trust with them, right? Very similar to how you would have worked with a human employee. The key there is, and the key always is, how do you eval what the outcomes are? And it always starts for me there, right? And I always say, before you own your AI, you should own your eval, because if you don't own the AI, you're not owning the eval, then what do you own in the pipeline?
I love that. How do you do the eval? Is there a tool? Is there a process? What are you doing on the eval to own your eval before you do your AI?
Yeah, tool is means to get somewhere, but mostly it's the determination of, if this is the cognitive task that we want to offload it, how do we determine good outcomes and bad outcomes? And its entire spectrum, right? Whether we are looking at adversarial outputs or wrong outputs, hallucinated outputs, inappropriate outputs, whatever those are, and there are a ton of them, right? So ability to be able to write down those evals of what constitutes good and not good, and then different aspects of good, as is talked about, for a given cognitive task. Right? Being able to write that down gives you a baseline of, if some outcome is generated, which class would it fall in, right? And then based on that, and this is both inner loop, outer loop, dev loop, and production loop. You could deploy this in a dev loop first, right, to see how is an AI model or an agent performing. And in the dev loop, you have the opportunity to tweak it, improve it, and bring it to a threshold which is most comfortable. But then you can also use this in a production or outer loop as well. When once deployed, you can then now monitor and observe the runtime behavior or the dynamic behavior of the agent in the wild. And then also identify the need to then do a feedback loop where you identify some of these scenarios where things are going off the roll, bring it back, going back into the dev loop, fine tune things again before you can deploy the next incremental next incremental version of it.
Agents are able to use tools, but they're also able to use multiple models. You've spoken about a future where models are selected automatically without users needing to know what's running. What does this invisible model routing unlock for the enterprise?
Interesting question. I think model routing, where we will start that first, is more on the consumer side of things. But then we can talk about how it would manifest itself in the enterprise side as well. So from a consumer standpoint, it is you go to ChatGPT, your favorite chatbot. Today you pick a model, whether even for cursor and other things, right? You pick a model, which is your favorite model, and you work through it, right? And for different tasks, you pick different. When I'm reasoning, I'll pick a deep research or O3 model, versus if I'm doing more creative writing kind of thing, I might even pick a 4.1 or 4.5 sometimes. I mean, it's still available, ChatGPT. So a lot of that decision making is on us, and there is this concept starting to manifest, which is model routing based on the outcome, the question, the intent, the right model will be picked. And from a consumer standpoint, that makes a ton of sense, because as a user, I always probably might not know what is the right model. I might be using a more expensive model to get this kind of smallish task done and whatnot. So the serving companies can save a ton of dollars, tokens, if they do the right model routing, right classification. In the end, most users just care about the outcome. They don't care about picking them all. Sometimes it's just a default model and stuff like that. For enterprise, it is the same thing, but on steroids, right? But it offers some challenges that if you're not picking your model by yourself, then it introduces another degree of variance now, which otherwise, when you pick the model, the model is set in stone. Of course, you will graduate the model and upgrade the models. And those are cycles that you go through, and they're deep validation kind of pipelines built into it. But if your model is being picked on the fly, it offers a new variance, a new kind of factor to now go validate that is the right model being picked for the task, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but again, another vector to validate before you push things out, and you will have to build trust and confidence in that.
Most enterprises, according to the primary research, are using more than one model today.
Yes.
And some of those models are behind their firewall as opposed to being used in a public model with private data. So they have the challenge today of picking between the models. They're just not doing it automatically. So it connects into the agents, doesn't it? That would be
Yeah.
Yep.
You pick Perplexity as an example, right? We go to Perplexity, we don't pick a model there. We pick a tier, pro tier, what tier, right? You pick a tier, you're not picking the model. So model is being picked on your behalf. But under the hood, before Perplexity serves you the response, they might even have proprietary models that they're leveraging to get smallish tasks done. Go search the web, rank the outcomes from the web search, right? Extract the right bits from that. So there are multiple models playing under the hood before the answer is served to you. But those are intentional choices of models that Perplexity has picked up. But as an enterprise, for a given scenario, if you're using model router as the API layer that you are hitting, now there is variance in just that layer itself. Right? You don't know out of model which model is picked for the task, and the router is doing the classification. You would want to own that classification as well at some point of time, like which task should be routed to which model, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I definitely see that's important in the enterprise. So how does this change the build buy decision for AI teams?
I honestly, and this might be a biased kind of point of view from place where I am coming from, is I always advise folks to start with something which is off the shelf. Right? Go pick the biggest, largest model that you can, and ensure that the goal that you're trying to achieve is realized, right? You know that your problem can be solved by a given model, right? And then you've picked the best model for now. And then come down the capability curve, right? Pick the next model, next best model, and so on and so forth, until you reach a breaking point. And that's the most efficient price performance model that you can then run this scenario on. You can always pick the biggest and the baddest model, but you might not get the value for your dollars right at that point. Those are kind of some of the decisions you would have to make. Again, an important thing in that is your evals will come into play, because you will run your evals through here are 3 models that I'm interested in or want to run through, see what the outcomes are, and then however much you're paying for those tokens will then determine which model you pick to make the right decision.
Great. I'm going to run to, because we're reaching the end of our time, I'm going to go to a little rapid fire round, a little lightning round. So, quick answers to these questions. What's one trend in generative AI you think is overhyped right now?
Prompt engineering. I feel we should deeply think about context engineering versus just prompt engineering, because models don't know your business, your data, right? You have to define the right context for them. Some of it is clever prompting, but a lot of it is just bringing the right context.
What's one use case you're bullish on for 2026? Enterprise use case.
I think document understanding, document processing is something that will be definitely solved in the long term, at least next year.
What's one leadership blind spot that's holding back AI ROI?
I would say rethinking AI native use cases. A lot of AI is duct tape AI, as I call it. And AI native thinking is something which AI leaders need to again deeply think about.
Where do you see AI transforming the enterprise in the coming years? Give me a really specific spot in the enterprise where you feel AI is going to unlock a transformation that has not yet happened.
I think vertical AI has a lot of promise. As models are becoming more open, more pervasive, even enterprise data is becoming more closed. Enterprises which sit on large data, they have a unique ability to transform that data into something very valuable. And I see that is something that will create a ton of new growth in enterprise.
Definitely. What resources do you recommend to our listeners who want to learn more about you?
Then that is my favorite kind of method of communicating externally.
Okay. And in the AI revolution, what's your defining edge as an AI leader?
Absorbing as much as you can. And I feel like that is easier stated than done. But again, read, listen, again, contrary opinions, both sides of the aisle. I say if AI is going to there's challenges there, all of those. I think that will help you form your thought. But again, embrace as much as you can, absorb as much as you can. I think that will help you.
Do you think there are specific leadership skills that are particularly useful and germane for leading AI in the enterprise?
Absolutely. I feel 2 or 3 skills that AI leaders should have at this point of time. Be curious with AI. You have to try these tools to be able to realize their benefit, because if you're not, somebody else is telling you what to do, right? So that's one of the things. Engage and embrace what's going on there. And then the fear of experimentation, I feel that's something that you can only tackle by doing more experimentation. So do as much experimentation that you can do to be able to see, hey, what's working, what's not working for you. So again, those are things that I would highly recommend.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ashish Bhatia, the AI product manager extraordinaire. I can't wait to see what you're going to be doing next.
Thank you, Christina. It was a pleasure being here.